that we made it to the top.
Oh, thank you.
All right, good morning. So for the first panel of today, we're going to be focusing on Black Friday. I don't know how many panels will be focusing on that, but ours definitely will be. I'm very glad to be moderating this panel and not on this panel because at Coterie, which is a direct-to-consumer diaper brand, I haven't run a Black Friday sale in 4 years, so I'm a little out of practice. So I'm very glad that we have our panelists here today to talk to you about what Black Friday actually looks like. Why don't we have, you guys can introduce yourselves and then we'll get started. Why don't you talk about your name, company, and also just generally how many Black Fridays you've done. That's a new one, sorry, I'm just bringing that on you.
No worries. Testing. Okay, cool. My name is Adam Schoenberg. I am the Chief Marketing Officer and President of Hodinkee. We're a multi-channel destination for all things watches. We have a print publication, a digital publication online. We make video content, and we also sell insurance. So Hodinkee is probably the most cited voice in all of watch media, talking about culture and reviews and lifestyle. And we have the most engaged global community in and around watches. How long have I been in direct-to-consumer? Most of my career. I'm 45. I know I don't look it. You guys can do the math on that. But prior to Hodinkee, where I've been for a little over a year, I spent the majority of my career as an entrepreneur and a founder. Last business I had where I spent many Black Fridays was a company called Hook & Albert. We were a travel and accessories brand. I launched that in 2011 and sold it in 19, right before COVID. It was not intentional because we were in the travel space. I got very lucky.
Solid.
But anyways, a lot of Black Fridays. Happy to be on the panel, share it with you and talk to all of you guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Louis Monayudis. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at a company called Boxu. Boxu is an interesting portfolio of brands. We have 6 disparate and unique companies under the strategy of Boxu. Our hero brand and product is a monthly subscription box called Boxu that imports snacks and treats from Japan. Also in the portfolio, we have 2 other subscription boxes, so 3 total, and then 3 standalone marketplaces. All of the brands import goods from Japan. We range from high-end premium gifting items all the way to collectibles for the Comic-Con crowd, Pokemon, things like that. I have been through, I think my entire career, I've been focused on Black Fridays when it comes to holiday. I started in advertising at a big firm called Leo Burnett, and then spent a long time in corporate fashion at Calvin Klein, John Varvatos, and Tommy Hilfiger. So of course, holiday shopping was a big focus for us before transitioning into e-com.
Cool. All right, so we have like at least 20 or 30 Black Fridays between up here. All right, so I think we can trust some of the advice that we're going to get. Okay, so the first question is actually going to be around when does Black Friday even start? And when do you think, has that changed over time, and when kind of should it start this year?
All right, so this is a hard one, right? Because as marketers, we want to protect brand equity. You don't want to be on sale too much, especially if you're trying to be in the premium or luxury space. So I imagine most of us are following a similar playbook where you tend to do an early access, VIP sale to your community, email subscribers, etc. Typically, I've launched those early November. This is a particularly challenging year because we have the election the first week of November. No matter who wins, it's going to probably be dominating the news cycle for the first 2 weeks of November. I think a lot of customers, myself included, are very nervous about the outcome of the election and what happens as a result. So we have to be sensitive to people's do they want to buy on something that's not necessarily a necessity, right? Are they thinking about gifting in this moment when they might be considering leaving the country, right? So what we're going to start doing is actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're going to start our promotions end of October, which feels crazy because that's Halloween, right? But I think we're going to start to layer in the discounting and GWPs and all those opportunities a lot earlier than ever this year. And in talking to others, I don't think I'm alone in this.
And then, what's your take on timing?
I obviously echo a lot of what you just said. Excuse me. I think that this is a more challenging Black Friday than probably ever before. I think on top of what you just said, I think it's also a leap year. So between, I think it falls on the 2nd of December, I believe, Cyber Monday, if I'm
got it,
counting
yes.
right. So you have
that was in
actually 1
February.
week less, I think, than to ship before like a traditional cutoff. So it's definitely putting pressure on marketers to really think about, when to kind of ramp it up. So I would say, end of October, early November is accurate, and a lot in our peer set. That's certainly what I'm hearing.
Cool. And then also when you think about kind of structuring, so we're talking about timing, but it's also the offer itself. And so, how are you guys thinking about structuring the offer? And we'll start with you.
Excuse me. I think Hodinkee right now is very different to answer that question. We actually got out of commerce like 2 months ago. I think I committed to you guys before then. So, but I can talk about last year and prior roles. But last year for us at Hodinkee, in terms of the structure and how we thought about this, it really came down to actually a specific KPI and need for the business. So the majority of our revenue last year was around pre-owned watch sales. And if you followed pre-owned watch sales, COVID, they were through the roof. And then after COVID, especially last year, it took a real big hit. So what we saw as a business was, number one, we were missing revenue numbers. So that was something that we had to solve for. And the easy way to do that, obviously, in pre-owned watches is just to discount and get as many people to your site. But then the other, so that was an easy solve, right? Hey, what kind of promotions can we do? The other thing that we had to solve for was really aged inventory. So we had probably 20 different SKUs out of 1,000 watches that were on our site for over 200, 250 days. And even though we bought those watches during the height of COVID, we really had to figure out how do we just get those off of our books, even if it takes a hit. So for those specific watches, it was building a very specific campaign around how to get rid of them. So there was a gold Cartier Santos that we had bought for probably 35 grand, retailed for 50 or 60,000. And we were like, you know what? That strategy is I want to list it for 18,000. It'll be the cheapest gold Cartier Santos that's out. And then we did it in a one-day event where we launched one watch every hour. You didn't know what was coming up until it actually launched, and first come, first serve, no returns. So that was a strategy specifically for that need. So in our business, it was all based on what the product and what the KPI was.
Cool. I'm just going to move on to the next question if that works. Okay, sweet. So one other thing that I'm really curious about, what are some of those things that people might overthink when it comes to Black Friday? The places where people are so focused on that, in your experience, doesn't really make that much of a difference.
So I think it depends on the size of the company, right? So I've been at big brands, I've been at earlier stage brands. I think a lot of people overthink their holiday campaign, right? So if you're Old Navy or Bloomingdale's or a big company, then yeah, you have the budget and the opportunity to do some really beautiful, well thought through holiday campaign. If you're a smaller brand, people aren't paying as close attention, you don't have as much exposure. They really just care about the discount, right? So I don't think you need to do a specific holiday shoot. I don't think you need to come up with some crazy concept. Definitely put some ribbons and bows on things. That definitely increases conversion on ads, studies have shown. But don't get too crazy on that side of it. The other thing is, I think you can get, depending on your thoughts around this, but you can consider getting creative with how you structure the offer. So at one company, we had a lot of bundles, right? So let's say that the individual items in the bundle, if you bought them, were a certain amount, but if you bought it as a bundle, it was cheaper, right? So kind of the everyday discount on the bundle was like 27% off. But if you're running an additional 20% off site-wide, you can run Facebook ads that say savings up to, and then it's 20% off that price. So it's not everything, but you want that hook on especially those very high impact ads to say save up to this amount, people come through. They might get a little frustrated, not everything's that amount, but you are giving discounts and people tend to play and not get too crazy about it.
Awesome. And then what is your kind of the thing that maybe people over-engineer a little bit too much on Black Friday?
So as you were talking about business size, I think it's also the market that you're in. So prior to Hodinkee, I was running a business called First Person. We were cognitive supplements, right? We had 3 SKUs. the KPI there going up to Black Friday was not how many more, either at once or subs can we kind of drive, but I asked the question, what do we want to do next year? Right, we're super close to to next year. What is it? And we wanted to launch a Lion's Mane ready-to-drink powder. So the strategy for me was, if that's important for 2025, that's our gift with purchase. So let's take our entire cohort that we have and let's the gift of purchase be the thing that we want them to use next year. And I think a lot of times as brands, if you have a new product coming out, and you can afford to put a sample in with a gift with purchase, that's something to think about versus just discounting further to get more people into your funnel.
Yeah, I'm going to actually hop in on that one as a not moderator. But yeah, I agree that gift with purchase based discounting is I know it's not novel, but I think it's a really cool way to say something additional about your product and actually deliver value prop messaging in a way that a straight up discount doesn't do. I've had a lot of experience being at Birchbox in the past, and the gift with purchases that we did, because they were really nice brands, were able to make the point that Birchbox gives you access to awesome brands without having to say it. You can get a discount-based hook, so I love that. One thing that you guys said that was really interesting, or Louis, you were saying it, which is you don't throw your strategy out the window for Black Friday. You don't just do a whole brand new shoot. You don't do a whole brand new messaging approach. It's a little bit of, it's the same thing, just a little bit more. And I think we were talking about this too earlier, which is, what's your take on how you think about planning for Black Friday and how the strategy continues throughout the year versus it being a distinct Black Friday strategy?
So I think it's really, most of us spend the entire calendar year building up our audience, and then sometimes we think of Black Friday as just, well, how do we convert them? And I think when thinking about it, for me, it's, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, once I have all these customers, I still want to retain. You're looking at LTV. How do I think about that for next year? And I think it goes... Hello. All right, there we go. See, I'm not interesting, so they just cut out my mic. I think it just really goes to understanding what your objective is for the following year. So if I'm sending you a product, for example, and I want you to be a sub next year, I've sent you, you're an at once, I want my messaging and the way that I'm building that offer to speak to what I want you to be doing next year. So I'm talking about, hey, you can save, you can join our loyalty program, et cetera. So I think that's just something when I'm thinking about building or structuring, it's really what I want that specific consumer to be next year. So that's like for that brand. And then obviously for us at Hodinkee, when we sold you a watch, I also, in a perfect world, want you to insure that watch. So the strategy last year was a lot of that. So, you're purchasing your favorite watch, the stuff's valuable. Likely you're going to go on vacation with that watch, depending on when you bought it. So I want to quickly, after that, get you to be an insurance client to protect it. And then also it's kind of, on month by month basis, it's great. It's basically 100% margin business for us. So that was really important.
Yeah, you brought up a really interesting point, which is how you think about Black Friday differently in a more subscription LTV component-based business versus a more one-time purchase-based business. And I think you've all worked across those different types of business models. Is there anything, how do you guys think about just discounting in general, and especially Black Friday, across a one-time purchase-based model versus a subscription model? And what's the kind of, those main considerations?
Yeah, so Boxu is primarily a subscription-based business, especially with our hero brand. The overall metrics are focused on, of course, CAC and LTV, so trying to make sure, and the beauty about being at a subscription business is you can have a higher CAC because you're going to have people in your ecosystem paying you on a recurring basis for a longer period of time. So there, the strategy is acquisition, retention, and reactivation. Whereas I've been at other companies where it might be you're really trying to make your entire value on the customer as much as possible in that first order, maybe upsell them down the road, but you don't get as much of that. So and that just really comes down to margin structure and how your business is funded, if you're going for top line revenue or overall EBITDA. And that's where I think, GWP is really great at brands I've been at if you're really just trying to get that initial purchase to come in. But I think it really comes down to testing at the end of the day, right? Each audience is different, the times are different, and also now all of us are diversifying our sales channels, so it's no longer our own website. We're in retail, we're on TikTok Shop, we're on Facebook Shop, we're in Amazon, we're on all these places where we have different levers to pull. So if you're on Amazon, you can really just do discounts, right? So you got to play that game, especially for Prime Day. If you're on your website, you got a lot more flexibility.
Awesome. We're going to hit on channels in a sec. And actually, that's actually a great time to talk about it. We talked about distribution channels. Let's talk about advertising channels for a second. Is Black Friday the time to really unlock new channels that they might back out on Black Friday, whereas they didn't back out earlier? Or is that the absolute wrong thing to do?
We talked about this, I think, prior, but I think you have a full calendar year before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or at least first half of the year to do your testing, build out your media mix modeling, see what works, see what doesn't. Depending on the KPI you're looking at, for us at Hodinkee, it was always looking at our ACOS, and I wanted to keep that number under X%. So I knew based on those channels where I was over delivering and where it just wasn't working, and then I just take it's not anything to be a genius here, but you look at those things that are really effective for us, and then we double down and grew those, going into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. In my past, I will say that I have tested things, and it really did not work. So my advice is don't go test channels unless you've done it kind of first half of the year when it's the most important part of our business cycles.
Yeah, I would say something that we were talking about earlier is an example. I had an affiliate that was driving a ton of revenue, a media-based affiliate, and they said, hey, we have this great Q4 activation package if you want to do a media buy. It was not cheap, but we had all this data, right? Like their customers are converting, all these organic placements, blah, blah, blah. And so we did this big media buy, and it didn't drive any additional revenue. And you think if it's Q4, that's the time to test it, that's the time to lean in, that's the time to make it happen. And in many ways, things are going to be a lot more expensive. All media is more expensive in Q4. And you just don't know if it's worth putting it there versus other tried and true channels. So I agree. If you want to test, make it very small. But if you can do it before Q4, I would advocate for that.
And fun fact, it was the same, we won't tell you what it was, but it was the same brand or property that didn't work for us.
I'm so tempted, but yes, I'll protect their identity as well. All right, I think I'll do one more question, then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. Does that work from a timing perspective? Cool. You brought up an interesting point that with channel diversification, offers on Black Friday and distribution channel become even more complicated. Do they all have the same offer? Is there a difference? How do you think about that? Does anyone have more experience there, and how do you think about structuring offers across various distribution channels?
I think that you can be channel specific, and a lot of, if you're doing TikTok lives, they want you to have the best offer at that moment. You're doing the TikTok live, and you should absolutely do it, right? Like reward people for tuning in where they are. A lot of people are willing we all pay more for household goods on Amazon because of the convenience, right? And I think, a lot of people in this room, myself included, I might discover a new brand on Instagram. I'm gonna try to find them on Amazon because easy returns, I don't want another login, maybe they're on Shopify and it seems legit, maybe they're not. So I think it's okay to be very specific and catered with your offers. One strategy that we've done is if you are going to do a unique discount that's not across the board, because of course if you're on Walmart and Amazon, they'll scrape it and this price match automatically, which can be a huge headache, is create a unique bundle or a unique offering. So, just put two items together that you can't find anywhere else, then it's a unique SKU to that channel. The discounting can be a little different and it's not as easily comparable in Google Shopping and other places. So that's how we've gotten around it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, but there's still some more. So any questions from the audience? Yes. I'll just repeat that question for the room and then go for it. So the question is, does it make sense to have the same offer over a long period of time for Black Friday, or is there an advantage to keep on switching it up throughout the Black Friday period?
Great question. So last year for Hodinkee, we started actually early October, our holiday kickoff, and we started on 10:10. So for those that don't know, when you shoot a watch, it's always on 10:10. The minute and the hour hand gives you the most exposure to the dial. So that was like our Amazon Prime Day, right? So we started off there with a very specific initiative, and that was exciting. That was where we got rid of that gold Cartier I mentioned, right? So it was all day, and that KPI was we want to have consistent traffic to the website because we had an advertising business to go against, and we wanted to get rid of inventory. And then after that, we looked at it, all right, for the next week, what are we going to do? And that's where we wanted to focus on accessories. We sell a lot of accessories, watch rolls, watch safes, watch straps, things like that. So that was where we built that offer in and around, let's go heavy on accessories. And then after that, it was, okay, now let's focus on our pre-owned business, right? And then it was different categories. So we could do 20% off dive watches, and then we could do a different percentage off dress watches. It worked based on what I was selling, but we kept it different versus site-wide 25% off. For us, there would be fatigue. You're spending money against a pretty similar audience, and at some point, you're not getting them back. So I needed to get them back to the site to see what else there was. So that was our strategy and how we thought about that.
I think it's a great question. I've been at companies that have different thinking about it. Part of it depends on your team, right? It's a lot of work to update your email flows and your Facebook ads and your website banners with the new offer, not to mention making sure like on the back end it all works and customer service knows. If you have a robust team, you have much more ability to do that. What I like to do is try to keep it consistent and then have like a plan A and a plan B depending on how sales are going. So we're ready with the creative assets, we're ready with the emails, so it's not a midnight scramble on the 23rd of November. But ideally, I think you can try to gauge it and make it easier for your customers to understand and not make it a huge fire drill for you and the entire team.
Solid. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, thank you so much. We have a lot of other panels coming up, so thank you. Okay, thanks again. Thanks for our panelists.
Thanks, guys.